I'm Don Dixon. I want to thank you for joining me for another master class on the proper tools in fishing. We've established down through our conversation that we need certain equipment to be able to do the right job once we get out there on the water. Bottom line is we want to catch fish. And certain tools are the right stuff, as we've called this discussion. It's important. We need to have the right equipment that's going to allow us to control all of our depths and our speeds. We've talked about the importance of that. And now we're down to probably one of the most discussed tools that we have in fishing. And obviously one of the most important tools that we have in fishing, and that is our depth sounder. Now, one of the things that I was aware of before we entered into this study was that the biggest changes probably in tools and equipment that's taken place over the last 25 years is in the area of our sonars, the area of our depth sounders. And I thought, so I could be knowledgeable about all of the changes, I talked to one of the most knowledgeable men I know in the game. He's an employee of Bass Pro Shops, and he's an electronic genius. He knows everything there is to know. So I talked with this guy, and let me just give him a shout out. His name is Patrick Davis. He's in the Orlando, Florida store, back in electronics, and he really is a knowledgeable young man. And I really enjoyed the conversation I had with him. You know, before I tell you what Patrick had to say to me, I want to read something to you. And it's something from a newsletter that I wrote about 25 years ago. Now, back in those days, I had, about 125,000 regular customers, and I did a once-a-month newsletter. And it would be about 3,000 words, sometimes 4,000 words, concerning different subjects. And, you know, it was just a way of connecting with my client base and my students. And this particular newsletter was called The Right Stuff, which is where I got the idea to name that this discussion with you today, The Right Stuff, right gear. And I'm going to slip my cheaters on here for a minute, and I want to read you out of my newsletter what I said some 25 years ago concerning depth sounders. I want to read it exactly so that you'll understand the rest of the story that I'm going to tell you later. Okay, depth sounders. Probably the most important tool we have in fishing. At the time now, there were 3 different types to be considered. It's pretty much the same today. 1, we had flasher units. And they're still being made, by the way. Vexlar is a good example. Liquid crystal graphs. We had LCDs and LCRs that were being built back then. They were a derivative of the early graphs, which were paper. And, I mean, that was really going way back. That was even really before me. But so we had the liquid crystal graphs, and then we had a depth meter. Now, a depth meter was built by Buck Perry, and it was very small, and I'll talk about it later, but there really, at the time that I wrote this, there were 3 main types of depth sounders. Now, reading on. Unfortunately, depth sounders are commonly referred to or sold as, and that's still pretty much today, fish finders. This, of course, is totally misleading and is simply not true. Your depth sounder does not go out in this lake and find fish. You can only see fish on your depth sounder, when possible, if you're driving over top of them. So you can't send your boat out and your depth sounder out there and say, go find me some fish. Call me when you found them. Doesn't work that way. So they're not really fish finders. They're depth sounders. So I go on to say depth sounders were meant to be used for locating, mapping, and interpreting bottom features in your lake and not to locate fish. With that in mind, let's take a look at the 3 different types and try to determine which one is best. And that's what I was trying to do back then and still trying to do today. What's going to work best for you in order for you to catch fish? All right. First, flasher units. These were the first sonars that were built, and today the technology that was used to build these units is considered by most people, not all people, but most people, considered to be kind of out of date, you know, yesterday's newspaper kind of thing. And one of the problems was they had too many moving parts. Brushes, motors, light bulbs, something always seemed to be going wrong. In addition, when you turned the boat in a certain way, you were working, fishing a brake line, or you were mapping, and all of a sudden you turned the boat and the sun hit the flasher, you lost your signal. You couldn't see it. It would be just completely invisible. So that just angered the heck out of me, because I used flashers at one time. But not being able to see the signal 100% of the time really bothered me. Now, I go on to say it was pretty aggravating when trying to map and interpret a structure or to make a trolling pass. But today these units have pretty much been taken off the market by almost everyone, but there are still some being made. And it is a viable option for you today. I think I already mentioned Vexilar. So we'll leave that for the moment. Let's move on to what I say about LCDs and LCRs. These TV-type graphs have all of the latest technology available, just like today. But from a fishing standpoint, they've kind of missed the boat. Keep in mind, I'm talking about graphs 25 years ago. Back then, it was thought by me and a bunch of other people, mainly Buck Perry, that the extremely wide cone angles of that day were 18, 20 degree, and 24 degree. And that was the opposite of what you and I need in order to be successful. I'll explain more about that later. Another bad feature of the LCRs and the LCDs is that they had a built-in rate of change. Now here comes a real sore spot. Was a sore spot back then. And it is this. When I'm talking about a built-in rate of change, it would click. If your depth changed from 10 feet to 15 feet, it would show you that change, but a second or 2 seconds later, or an exact time later, it wouldn't give you the true rate of the change. It wouldn't give you the rate of fall, the proper and exact rate of fall. It was a built-in deal. And if you really get good and understand Buck Perry and what we're doing on the water, that is an absolute no-no. We need an instant response, and we need to know the exact rate of fall. How sudden was that break? Not like, well, did it go like this or did it go like this? We need to know, not only in our map and interpretation, but as we're fishing that thing, we got to stay exactly on that spot in order to be successful. And if we're not sure where that exact spot is because of that rate of change, we're not going to be able to hit it. So that was a real problem. So in other words, the true rate of fall or break that is occurring under the water cannot be reflected or transferred by an LCR, but rather it changes at a set rate of speed, which again is the exact opposite of what we need. So when I concluded my discussion of the graphs of that day, let me remind you, the most important physical thing that must be done in order for you and I to consistently catch fish is to develop the skill of precisely following a brake line. And with the liquid crystal graphs back in the day, it wasn't possible. It wouldn't allow you to make precise passes. So we had to do something different. Well, Buck had invented the depth meter. And even though it was little and it was 0 to 50, and it was a needle with a swing of about like that. And that's all he ever used. Well, I realized the importance of the meter after using it. But I wanted back then, I wanted mine to be a little bit bigger unit. I wanted the swing to be 0 to 60. That was becoming important, that we were able to show 60 feet. And I wanted it to be easily seen. So I developed, I got a picture here, I'll show you of what I developed, and sold it for years. Just called it Don Dickson or Pro Structure Structure Locator. It helped us in our map and interpretation, it helped us in our fishing, And it was able, with a 9-degree cone, which is what we had on our transducer, to give us the information which we needed was, what is the depth right underneath the boat? That's what I want to know. And it gave me the exact rate of fall. No other unit would do that. It gave me the closest was the flasher. But the graphs wouldn't do it. It was something that they just didn't do. It was a built-in rate of change, which is not what we need. So, that being said, I used this meter that I'm showing you a picture of, and I'm still using it. Why would I change? It does exactly what I want it to do. This is how I finished rating this, and it's how I feel today. I believe the depth meter is the best sonar unit made. Equipped with an easy-to-read analog display and an 8 or a 9-degree transducer cone angle, the meter has the ability to reduce the field of view and transfer the bottom readings at the true and exact rate of change. This allows us to locate, map, and fish the exact spots in the lake where the fish will be. I can't stress that any more than I just did. Okay, with all that being said, I'm going to now take you back to Orlando, and I want you to visit with Patrick Davis and me as we talk about today's units and all of the things that they'll do. They have the ability to take and what they call, I think Garmin calls it quick draw, but they all have this same capability that's built into the unit now. They're loaded with all of these different things that you can purchase in your unit. And this one was called Quick Draw with Garmin. I think it's Quick Draw. And it puts you out there in a blank screen and puts you, there's your boat. And if I was doing a detailed map of a bar out here, and I hit that button, I touch, do my touch screen, hit the button for Quick Draw, that all of a sudden that little red boat, which designates me, is going to follow all of my moves and actually draw a picture of what I'm doing. Now, in the old days, I go out and come up to a structure, and whether it was a bar or hump, whatever it was, and in order to get the details of that structure, I would do a detail map, which began with me following the brake line, which created that structure. And then in the end, sometimes it'd take 10 minutes, sometimes it'd take 15. But I'd do it, and then I'd draw me a little picture of that structure on a pad. Always had a pad with me. And then I'd take soundings, and then I'd circle a spot and say, there's my fish. There's the contact point. But now, my depth sounder will draw that map for me. If I'm doing the right thing, it's going to draw me a perfect picture of that structure. And then you can just save it, So next time you come to this particular lake, there you just call it up, and there it is. There's your personal little map of this little structure. So all of this technology, it's really quite remarkable. And the more I learned and I'll just go, and I'll go ahead and mention the makers. We've got Lawrence, we got Humminbird. These are the same guys who were in business when I was very active. They're the same companies. Ray Marine, there's also Garmin has burst onto the scene. And from everything I've seen, they have a terrific product. I mean, but all of these makers, pretty much, and this is not according to Don, this is according to Patrick Davis, the expert. He said they're all pretty much the same. They all do the same stuff. They're all using the same technology. Everything's the same. There's just a different name on it. Then, then it comes to marketing and so on and so forth. But they're all pretty much the same. And I asked him a question. And this is what I want you to know. I said, I really have two questions for you that I don't know the answer to. I know what it was 20 years ago. Now, I'm not going to change. I'm using my meter. I'm not going to change a thing. I've only caught 2 million fish using it, whatever the number is. I'm not about to change what I've got, but I can't offer it to you. I can't even make a suggestion to you that this is what you should have because no one's making one. Okay, so if you're sort of getting the idea of what I'm trying to say is there are some brand new features with today's technology that are really neat. I mean, it's some special stuff. HD, 4K. I mean, it's beautiful. However, Does it do what you and I need it to do? Do these new units do what I suggested 25 years ago we needed to have in order to catch fish? Or have they missed the boat? I mentioned before that some of the prices, and we have some pictures here that we're going to be showing you of what I found at Bass Pro Shops. And it's pretty standard, the prices, regardless of the maker. Pretty standard what you're getting for X amount of money. But one that has some of the features that you'd probably like, somewhere around 500 bucks, $4.99. Then you get up to the $8.99, it's really kind of even more nice. And then there are some that are $2 grand. There are some that are $3 grand. I actually saw two that are over $5 grand for a depth sounder. Once again, I'm shocked, just like I was shocked about the price of boats today. So I asked him, here's what I need to know. First, and most importantly, no matter whether it's $499 or whether it's $3,900, I want to know, do the new Chirp units, whether it's Lawrence, Humminbird, Garmin, I don't care the maker either. Because we know they're all using the same technology. That's for sure. That's an absolute. What I want to know is, what is the average, or let me put it another way, what is the smallest, the narrowest cone angle that you can get on one of these units? And I've got pictures of all these units down there. They had them all. What's the narrowest cone angle you can get? He said 20 degrees. Now, if you remember our opening discussion, 20 degrees isn't going to cut it. I don't want to see what's around my boat. I want to see what's underneath my boat in that spot right there. And I said, 20 degrees, that's the narrowest? He said, yeah. I said, what in the world's the widest? He said, well, you know, it goes from 20 to like 120. You know, and if you have that, the new hot terminology, you know, if you have side imaging, if I can demonstrate to you, here's our boat. Here's side imaging. Yeah, it's 1 or 2% right underneath the boat. But it's 180 degrees this way. And I'm not going to know what is next. I can't anticipate in any way until I move to the next. So that doesn't really count as a narrow cone angle, side imaging. It doesn't count. And with all that being said, I said, in other words, nobody has a narrow cone angle. No. I said, okay, here's what my second question is, and most importantly, I need to know, first of all, I need to have a fast response back. I can't be learning 2 or 3 seconds later what just happened underneath my boat. I need to know now. When it happens, I need to know. I said, is there any fast response? All this new technology, have they figured out how to give me an instant response? He said, no. The one thing that they have not addressed. Okay, so for me, that's an absolute killer. See, now, you know, it goes against my grain to spend $3 grand or $2 grand for the latest and the greatest stuff in this sonar world. Would go against my grain to spend that kind of money. But if it could do everything I needed it to do, plus give me all of the latest and the greatest, you know, quick draw McGraw, and all those things, and all of the imaging and the different imaging and the chirp and all of that, and have a already loaded up Navionics in my TV screen that's on my boat, I might consider it, even though it would still be against my nature to spend that kind of money. However, it won't do the number one thing that I need to have done. It needs to have a fast response. I said, Patrick, isn't there something out there that'll give me that in today's market? How am I going to tell people what to do? I tell them this is what you need to do, and then I can't tell them that there's a way they can do it even if they spend $5 grand. What am I going to do? He said, well, there is still that fast response from a flasher. And Vexilar is still making flashers, and I knew that. I knew they were still making flashers. Now, these flashers still have some things that I'm not thrilled about. However, it does give you immediate response, and you can in fact get it with an 8 or a 9 degree cone angle on your transducer. So here now is an option. Now they're not exactly dirt cheap either, but if I didn't have my meter and I needed to purchase a depth sonder today, with everything that I've seen, money not being the deal breaker or the opposite. Money didn't matter. Which one would I buy? I'd want the one with the immediate response back to me, which in fact would be that flasher. So again, I said I never like to get in talking in terms of who I'm going to recommend or what brand name I'm going to recommend, but I don't know anybody else making it. Vexilar is. So if I couldn't have my meter, that's probably what I'd have in my boat. That being said, don't get me wrong. I love all of the new technology. I love the things that it does right. But the two things it has to do for me to own one, it doesn't do. So therefore, I've given you the information. That's all I could do. And I have had a bunch of calls already. People wanting to know when I'm going to start remaking my boat. People want to know when I'm going to start remaking my meter. Well, I have had a talk with someone, and it might be something that's coming down the road. I would like to be able to produce a new meter with today's technology, but still do the two things that we must do: small cone angle, instant response, the proper rate of change. All of those things that are really important in catching fish. So when that day comes, if it does come, I'll be sure to let you know because I want to be able to say, here's what we need to do and here's what you need to do it. In this case, we don't have the exact thing available today. So at any rate, today was a little bit of a convoluted, we like them, we don't like them, we like some stuff, we don't like it all, but here's what you really need, and I hope you at least have some better idea of what you should have in the way of a sonar unit, a depth sonder, which is what it really is and what it's meant to be all along, is telling us what depth of water we're in. So at any rate, thanks for joining me today. You know I appreciate you for sure. So like us on Facebook, and whatever you do, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We've been, I don't know, getting all of these reports about over 200,000 minutes of viewing the last 3 weeks or something like that. We know people are watching, but everybody's not subscribing. So do me a favor, hit that red button, subscribe to the channel so that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm talking about, when I invent my new meter, you'll be sure to not miss that one. You'll know all about it because you're a subscriber. So thanks again. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you the next time.